Good morning, I'm Adam Sexton. Amid an ongoing flurry of vetoes, it came as a bit of a surprise when Governor Chris Sununu allowed a bill to fund a study of commuter rail in New Hampshire to become law without his signature. The governor had campaigned against rail in 2016, but later said he'd support it as part of a deal to try to bring Amazon's second headquarters to New Hampshire. That, of course, fell through, and now he's decided not to stand in the way of a big next step in this process. Joining us to discuss this morning is Senator Melanie LeVake of Nashua and E.J. Powers of New Hampshire Business for Rail Expansion. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Well, Senator, we'll start with you. Did you have any indicator that the governor was going to let this get through?
Well, I did have a conversation with the governor about rail, and his comment was that he would rather see it in the budget. Our strategy was to have an outside bill, outside of the budget, in the event that the governor did veto it. And it's very unfortunate that the governor vetoed a bill that would have brought $200 million in tax relief to our property tax payers, both homeowners and businesses. But we do have this bill that was outside the budget that the governor did allow to pass without signature. So it was having a backup plan. Plan B.
Yeah, and Plan B clearly worked in this case.
Absolutely.
EJ, what is this study going to tell us about rail, essentially?
Sure. Well, for one thing, Adam, it's actually an in-depth analysis. So we try and avoid the term study because rail has been studied extensively, and there's been fairly tremendous estimations in terms of the benefits that it could provide to New Hampshire in terms of jobs, economic benefit, and the like. But this analysis will take a deep dive into the geotechnical aspects of expanding rail, environmental aspects, as well as a firm financial plan to actually outline how this investment could take place and what the funding mechanisms would be in order to have that become a reality. So it's really allowing the state to understand the true costs and benefits of rail and allowing the state to do its due diligence before the governor and elected officials take the next step and say, yes, we do want to construct this project.
And Senator, this has been kind of fertile ground, but what would this mean to Nashua, obviously?
Well, it would be a great boon to Nashua. I mean, we've already have a former rail system. Businesses are looking for it. The governor of Nashua would like to see that revitalization of our downtown area, and this would be a great part of that revitalization.
EJ, you met with DOT this last week. Describe what they're looking at and what their timetable is for how this might move forward.
Sure. So it's my understanding that the Department of Transportation is going to be meeting with the Federal Transit Administration. Most of these large projects receive federal funding, sometimes up to half of the cost. So they'll need to meet with the Federal Transit Association and then, or excuse me, the FTA, and then also meet with the state of Massachusetts, the Department of Transportation down there, as well as the MBTA, which would be operating the line should they decide that they want to move forward with that. And then ultimately an RFQ, request for qualifications, will be put out to identify an engineering firm that would undertake this analysis, and then ultimately a request for proposal. So you're looking at roughly about a year or so till an engineering firm is established, and then probably about 18 months to 2 years to conduct the analysis. And shovels could be in the ground within 3 years, and it would take about 3 years to build out the expansion project.
Senator, there's obviously a political component to this where you would have to convince your colleagues to keep moving forward with something along these lines, and a huge investment as well. What do you say to not just elected officials, but constituents and voters in New Hampshire, say who are outside of the Capital Corridor, who would say, well, what benefit is this to me? Why should my tax dollars from Dalton or Berlin go to this project?
Well, we've had a lot of support from outside of the cities. In my town in Brookline, there are people that want to take the train. In Hollis, people that have children in college in Boston would like their children to be able to ride on the train. So there is still a lot of support on the outskirts, and there's room for growth. So should this get off the ground, we get the funding mechanism in place, there's opportunity to grow even further.
And EJ, what is to that argument essentially? If I'm in the North Country, how does this benefit me?
It's interesting. So a poll was conducted by the New Hampshire Institute of Politics at St. Anselm College, which showed that 75.5% of New Hampshire residents support rail. So that a majority of residents in every single county, of every single age demographic, of every single political party, all support rail expansion. And so we look at it as just as the Manchester-Boston Regional Airport. You might not use that every single day, but the $1 billion plus in economic benefit that it provides to the state benefits you whether you're next to the airport in Londonderry or in Berlin or Boscawen. So there are benefits to the state throughout just the corridor, and some of the economic benefits are really quite impressive in terms of the jobs that are estimated to be created. 5,600 jobs in the first few years, and then after 2021, 1,700 jobs created every year. $750 million worth of economic output from real estate development, over 3,600 residential units. So when you look at a project that has the potential economic benefits that this does, it only makes sense to take this next step, do your due diligence, and then provide policymakers with an educated with a case to make an educated decision.
And Senator, first stop obviously would be Nashua. Should this line be going to the airport, to Manchester? What's the next best stop?
Well, it will be going to Manchester. As far as the design of the layout, that's all going to be studied, I believe. So
the first study that was done, the New Hampshire Capital Corridor study, looked at a number of different options, extending to Concord, extending just to Nashua, extending to Manchester, and the most economically viable in terms of the investment required, and the results suggested Manchester. So it'd be 16 trains to Manchester, so there'd be 2 stops in Nashua, Crown Street downtown, and then either Spitbrook Road or Pheasant Lane Mall, and then a stop in downtown Manchester and one at the Manchester-Boston Regional Airport. So that's
both essentially.
Yeah, both. So that is what's going to be analyzed in this next phase based on the previous work that's been done.
So a bridge crossing of the Merrimack would obviously increase the price tag. How do you pay for this?
Well, we have to look at funding mechanisms first of all, because there are federal funds for projects like this. Now, how do we pay for this next step, or rail in general?
Right. I mean, the federal government's picking up the tab on the analysis and the study and all that. But as we potentially move forward with this, the state obviously operates on a pretty thin budget as it is. How do you make this a priority and fund it?
Well, again, I think that we have to look at what is available through federal funding. And that's going to help us determine if we can move forward. How much more do we need to put in ourselves as a state? We can't answer that question until we complete this phase.
The financial plan will really outline the opportunities that are presented. So how can the private sector play a role? If you look at rail expansion and sort of the growth in communities, whether it be Dover or Exeter or along the Amtrak line in Maine, you see the vibrancy that's created and the developers that want to purchase land and build real estate around that. So there are a number of options that I think are going to be examined in terms of TIF districts, taxed increment financing districts, and what can be created. If there are parcels of land that a developer might want to purchase, that the state could get a piece of sort of the action on and help to defray some of the costs. So businesses, no matter, businesses that are part of our organization cover the spectrum in terms of, Republicans, Democrats, Independents, from small, bar studios to some of the biggest banks in the state. And they all are here in New Hampshire for a reason. We love the quality of life. We love and want to preserve the New Hampshire advantage. But we see that, investment is going to likely be necessary, and we're hoping that this analysis will give us some prudent steps in terms of how to make that investment while preserving everything that everybody loves in the state.
It's safe to say that right now you look south of the state line and the MBTA struggles sometimes keeping the trains running on time, keeping the tracks up to date. How do we know, if we move forward with this, that we're not inviting some of that dysfunction that is there into our state with this system? I'll go to you first, Senator.
Well, I would say that we've got to constantly be improving. And we know that there may be issues now. We want to ensure that those will not take place in the future. And, caution whoever our partners are and let them know that these are the parameters. These are the SLAs that you need to live up to.
And I think, the challenges are well documented, and any transportation system, whether it's a highway or a commuter rail system, is going to face challenges. But I think there's confidence in the provider in Massachusetts, and there's a real need to have an alternative form of transportation. I think everyone's sat in traffic trying to go down to Boston, and it's just so unpredictable in terms of how long it will take. It could be an hour or it could be 3 hours. There's some predictability and reliability around commuter rail, and there certainly will be bumps in the road, but the conversations that the state will be having with the state of Massachusetts to understand capacity and willingness are going to be important to answer your very question.
Okay, Senator Melanie LeVake and E.J. Powers, thanks so much for your time,
Thank
and I'm
you.
sure we'll be talking about this more as the future unfolds.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.